Ericeira on the Portuguese coast and 10 miles to the north of it, 10 miles to the south of it. Not all of that is the second world surfing reserve, but to the north you're starting to encroach on the Peniche territory. There's plenty to Ericeira, apart from surfing. It's only 30 minutes from Lisbon. There's a fair number of expensive middle-aged persons' restaurants, which I don't think has got anything to do with their children wanting to go surfing particularly. It's just their weekend house, or destination of choice, and quite rightly so. To see or get to surf the 20 miles of coast, you need a car really. You've got to pick the right spot of potentially 65 breaks for the right climatic conditions. Yeah, surfing is a weather-dependent sport. The most reliable places are often either dangerous because the rocks are reef or overcrowded. It's an industry, teaching people how to surf. I never knew it as that. But whether you're in Bells Beach in Australia, Cornwall, Devon, or Portugal, the people that teach you how to surf will talk about the etiquette and the manners. There is no manners to surfing. It's like a longevity pecking order thing, and in Britain and certainly in Australia it gets sorted out after the water with fighting and violence. But not good for sales. It's fairly high initial investment business and significant competition. You've often got to get up early in the morning, is the basic principle, which the hire shops aren't open at that time. There's plenty of silver-haired surfers that are maintaining their fitness, it's just not just the kids. You're looking for an offshore wind and a large swell from weather activity like a storm that's further out in the ocean and not near you yet. But by the time the storm gets to the land, that's the only time that the internet and reporters regurgitate old stories about the biggest waves ever in Nazaré, which is further up after Peniche, halfway from Lisbon to Porto. And it's fake. You can't even see the beach when the storm conditions come in. Anyhow, Portugal often has like a almost sandstorm-like poor visibility. Any winds, and the Atlantic has winds, brings Saharan dust with it. Let's blame that for so many filtered photos of Portugal. But the poor visibility really takes some getting used to. You wonder if it's your eyes, you wonder if it's your camera actually first. It might be the time of day. No, it's there all day long. No. Please excuse my pronunciation, but you have to be able to spell it to type it into the internet, don't you? Praia dos Pescadores. This is right in Ericeira itself. It's just below that cute little church, right on the top of the cliff, seafront cliff, with the slither of £1 million slum building in the tiniest little square. This fisherman's beach in the heart of town is a safe spot for beginners to learn how to surf, since the beach is sheltered by the cliffs, but not so good because you can't get the offshore winds quite the same at the right angle to get under to lift the white horses and delay the crest dumping. But it's obviously very popular. There's all the fishermen's boats sort of behind the beach, I suppose you'd say, but there's a harbour wall that sticks out, separates the main part of the beach. It's like a tidal harbour, really. But just at the end of these really slum-like fishermen's huts, completely working port, all like lobster nets and everything, rusting tractors, there's a bar with wind buffering glass screens, because it is right on the seafront. It's a very functional bar. It's modern enough on the outside, I suppose, but inside it's very much a fisherman's bar. You can feel a bit intimidating walking in if you haven't got cash, if you've got a card. There's a big macaw parrot in a cage inside the bar that squawks away, whistles away, that you can hear throughout the beach because it echoes off the cliffs. Now, surfing to me is a very physical business. You get a false impression when you see the Surfer Girls of Bali or something on YouTube. You'd think any skinny model in a bikini can surf and the bikini won't get ripped off with the waves. Of course it will. Now, I might have given you a different juxtaposition of images. It's a little bit false. There's no girls in bikinis dancing in cages in this place. It's slightly dirty. But then surfers, really, slightly dirty. Fishermen and surfers bar. I think it's mainly a fisherman's bar. Surfers these days, they're just not what they were. It's all about talking a good ride these days. Up far above Ericeira, there's a skate park that has a weekly event. Yes, you can watch the sunset. I've seen sunsets before. They're not always that great with Saharan dust. Can improve them. But skateboarding isn't surfing. It's like the only thing surfers are allowed to do after health and safety got hold of surfing. Or something, and then again, it's still, you gotta do the do, but it's a whole lot of repetitive practice that's frustrating. And then once a week you get an audience that inevitably will go into you when your board goes flying off because they don't know what's what. However, the world-famous surf spot that hosts national and international competitions thanks to the quality of the waves, home of Portugal's first national surfing competition in 1977, Riviera de las. There are quite a lot of French people in Ericeira, but I'm not sure why I'm doing my Portuguese accent as a French accent. The host of where we were staying after the dictator, they were taught French in schools. There's something socialist about that in my mind, so I like talking French to Portuguese people. Praia de Ribeira de Ilhas has something for everyone, from beginner to advanced. It's a right-handed point break where you can catch small whitewater waves, or you can go to the outside and catch perfect right-handed barrel waves. It's one of the 7 beaches around Ericeira that is part of the reserve. Have a look at the top of the cliff when you're in the water, and you'll see the statue of the Guardian looking out over the surf reserve. There's one of these in Nazaré. They must have got them as a job lot. Praia de Mata de Ouro, the Slaughterhouse, is a beginner-friendly beach where you often see many surf schools. You'll find reef breaks and beach breaks, so watch out where you put your feet when walking out into the water. Left and right-hand waves. Across the road there's a skate park where you can get beer. Praia de Foz do Lisandro, a beginner-friendly beach break in the right conditions. Sand-bottom spot provides tame and rock-free, nice view of the cliffs and the town in silhouette. There's a camp, surf camp, bars and restaurants and boardwalks. But there's a river. You've got to look out for rips. It might seem safe, but a rip, a current, can take you out to sea. Winds and current can wash you down the big long beach, and you've got a long walk when you're tired with a heavy surfboard, with a delicate skeg and a big deposit. And you haven't got much in the way of visual clues to let yourself know that you are being swept along. And you want to catch that wave. That's what you're looking for, those sets forming right outside. Praia de São Julião is perhaps the furthest site south in the Ericeira district. The beach strip. It's a split between Mafra and Sintra. It's a sun-bottom spot with a huge beach. Swell magnet. It's a swell magnet. So you'll find enjoyable waves here when the beaches are flat. Left and right-handed, but you can do goofy and regular, can't you? Left foot forward, right foot forward. You can get a view of the waves from the coffee shop and have some of those awfully sweet croissant-like things. The other pastries and those fried egg custard tarts. The hot drink coffee isn't such a lifesaver as in British surfing, where you've come in from cold water in a thick wetsuit. Some places recommend as little as 2 millimetres of neoprene. Yeah. Webbed mitts that help you paddle. Get you tired quicker, but they're always going to help you catch that wave. Barefoot is just more with nature than wearing boots. Neoprene boots. But they would save you from the rocks and the reef if you stand up in the wrong place. Sea urchins. I'll introduce you to sea urchins. Supposedly Ericeira is named after sea urchin. It's like the Greek word. Greeks used to sail up to the Cornish tin mines, didn't they, along the coast of Portugal, after battling through the moors and the straits of Gibraltar. Perhaps they'd been overfished. I didn't see any, apart from in the market, so they must be there, but they were huge. They were really huge. Worth eating. You don't get much out of a sea urchin. You have to sort of eat the points of the clock, just scooping the right bits out, all of it. And really have it properly prepared for you so you don't get any of those little spiky bits. You don't want to swallow those. The surf is supposed to work all year round, somewhere or other, but it doesn't, of course. Surfing little bits of white water just isn't surfing. You have to battle to get out the back through the white water, and you need strength to do that. And the biggest surf that you can get out through, perhaps through the rip, and a lot of paddling around, is the biggest surf you can surf. You're bored in your wetsuit getting ripped up on the rocks. If you want to risk it, yes, Ericeira wave works all year round. 55% of wave days come from ground swells. Ericeira's got a huge variety of beach breaks and reef breaks, prevailing offshore winds, beautiful surrounding coastline, and a fun surf town with plenty of atmosphere, and a head shop. The bad, there's some pollution in the water after heavy rain. The visibility, like I said, swells dip in the summer, which is where you're going to want to be. And to say that it's a little expensive compared to other Portuguese surf towns, it's near Lisbon. That's an understatement. I was going to add there seemed to be a higher proportion of large-breasted women in Ericeira than other parts of Portugal. Just saying. In winter, you might get onshore winds and will need a 4mm wetsuit and boots and hood and gloves. Spring swells, regular 5 or 10 foot waves. Intermittent warmer days, and less crowds. September and autumn is the prime time. Into October, it's tamer when the Atlantic engine room of Nazar gets a bit mental. September and October, beautiful warm weather, beautiful big swells. Like the ski bus in the Alps, there's the surf bus along the Ericeira coast. But schools have started back then. September, October, can you justify the time off? From Lisbon, heading west to Estoril, and then from Sintra, Estoril, Mafra, up the south of Ericeira, it's a little flatter. Praia do Magioto. The Sintra coast is beautiful. The mountains loom up high. The beach is wedged between sheer-cut cliffs. High tide gives high shelter in windy conditions. There's a long right and a short hollowish left, all over a patchwork of rocky reef and cobblestone. It's 5 foot plus, but you want a bit more. You want to get in the tube, don't you? Don't you? I do. There's wedges along the coast as the tide drops. Praia da Vigia, the southernmost cap of São Julião, but a full tide cuts this cove off so that you can only get there on a dusty country road that not all that many people know about. Always the best. The waves are fun peelers and break over a rock reef sand combo, offering neat rides of 40 to 50 metres on the best days. The focal point is the A-frame peak that offers very short lefts and longer rights into sand right by the access point to the beach. São Julião proper, when the swell dips in summertime and other southern beaches are looking positively serene and flat, there's a chance you'll catch a few great waves in São Julião. In fact, it's one of the few true swell magnets of Ericeira. A classic beach break, you'll catch loads of peaks extending down a large length of Portuguese golden sand. When things do start picking up, São Julião can suffer from heavy closeouts. It's not pretty. It turns into a washing machine when you get wiped out. I didn't say how Foz do Lisandro with the river. Works best at medium to low tide. The retreating water expands the plane of the wave. The estuary sandbars means that the wave changes daily. But you might get an 8-foot left-hander. That's the wave, not the surf dude. Large dos tubos. Sounds good. It's a tube in the title. It's best when there's a bit of north in the swell direction. 100-metre length of long marching rights, nice pitching walls, gets stretched out even further when it starts acting like a point break. In winter you want to get inside and you stand a chance of getting occasional hollow sections. Outside, it's all a lot of white water, too soon. Limipicos, wait for a high tide to push up and cover the rock reefs that run out in front of the stretch of beach. Don't be out there too long for the tide to change. It's only a short drive south of Ericeira. right-hand peaks that work in pretty much any swell, 2 or 3 foot. It might not sink, worth getting wet for. It's a great summer wave because it loves sets coming from the west channel. It's reliable sets. You don't have to sit around waiting, getting chilly. It's a good intermediate option. There's some exposed reefs, you see, and you'll need to be wary of it. Playa do Sol is a graduation from Lisandro. Neat, nice, glassy waters, 100-metre long ride. It's not to be sniffed at. Picture postcard stuff. North of Ericeira, the beach is north of the town.
E quando é meu espanto, olha, vejo por encanto, outra vez lá nas janelas, tabuinhas. Corri, bati à porta e até fiquei quase morta, quando ela se abriu pelas alminhas. Pois quem veio a porta abrir e a sorrir, era mesmo a Mariquinhas.
Rockier and more rugged than the south. It's now to seek out for more challenging barrels and points, which come into their own on those heavy northwest winter swells. Playa de Empa, one of the first waves you'll encounter as you head north out of Ericeira town, is the Speedy Reef. Hardly any sand between the rocky cliffs and the ocean. Accessible on mid to high tides for a zippy interior tube ride that's sure to get the adrenaline pumping. Truly, tubes are what we're all here for. Yeah, you can slash it up the wall. Sorry, that's not after the pub. Having a pee at the back of the pub wall. We're talking about slashing up the wall of the wave with your stick. Think about taking a helmet if you're doing big days at Ribeira de Ilhas, when northwest currents are sculpting its lovely long right-hander over its series of concealed reefs. But the dusty track to the high cliffs is what surf adventures start with. South of Coxos, at the front of Playa de Pesqueria Caves, is one of the grisly slabs that really showcase how heavy Ericeira's World Surfing Reserve area can get in those big winter swells. When it's punching in January, February, daredevils will scout out here to try and steal backdoor sections of a pounding right-hander. It's a frothing beast. Honestly, better watch than to surf. Falls into the it's too hard category. Crazy left is the left to the Cox's right. It breaks under the big cliffs on the south end of the Baía dos Caxos. For crazy left and Caxos, paddle out the same channel to get to the wave, which is fickle, to say the least. It likes strong southwesterly swells, and any wind in the northeast quadrant will have it working well. But that's a pretty rare combination in Ericeira. Good for goofy foot riders if it happens. Almond barrels that suck up off the very shallow reefs and filter into the channel. It's always rippy, but a real wild wave. Coxos has got the full pump of the Atlantic. It's forced into tubing right-handers. Big barrels are the name of the game. They wedge up and roll quickly over jagged reefs that are infested with urchins. Boots, neoprene boots are a must. Spy on how the locals paddle in and out before you even attempt to get in the water. It's something of an art. We're going to finish up at São Lourenço. It's further north than the Ribeira, and you'll come to the rocky cove. A gold sand beach opens up into what some consider to be some of the finest big wave sets in the country. On large swells, this one's a playground for those extra large crowd pleasers with their sights set on Nazaré. Even on weaker swell days, the right hand rides for 150 metres in length. There might be zero crowds, but it's only really for you. Surfing is only really between you and nature. It's very difficult for anyone to really see it. The people out with you, it's a shared experience. From the shore, unless you know the style, and everyone has their own style, you just can't discern who those black blobs are. Even if you've got a flashy wetsuit or a high-vis vest on. If you're vain or trying to enjoy something out the water, Ericeira is the place. It's a stylish place and a beautiful crowd.